Right, so I think we can start. Well, welcome everybody for joining us in this session on continuous delivery for Alfresco solutions. Before we start, a couple of words about myself. So my name is Roelad Hofkens. I'm the CTO of Westernacher Products and Services. So we're a platinum partner here in Germany. And well, I have about 15 years of experience in the enterprise content management arena. Worked with lots of products, Documentum, Stellent, which is now Oracle, lots of SharePoint. And I've been working with Alfresco since version 1.1, so I've seen a lot. And about 3 years ago, I started developing our continuous delivery platform. At that time, we were experimenting with the Amazon Elastic Computing Cloud for load testing and for testing in general. The whole cloud experience was getting into a hype at that time. And from there on, we started using continuous delivery in projects. The first project we started 2 years ago at SAP, which was one of the biggest Alfresco platforms and solutions worldwide. And since a year, we are using it extensively in all our own developments at Westernacher. So what I want to show you in this session is how you can embrace continuous delivery to get more satisfied customers, yeah? So that they, they're happy with the solutions. And I'll show you how this is enabled by custom delivery. Now, of course, customers, you all want your customers to be happy, but it's also about you, how you do your job as a developer, and how you work with the solutions, and so to enable you to have a better way to do your job and to focus more on your job. That's about continuous delivery in general. Of course, we will also focus on how you can combine Alfresco solutions with the whole continuous delivery environment. Right, I think that continuous delivery is probably something that most of you have heard of, but you might not 100% know what is behind it. Yeah? So, so what are the cornerstones of continuous delivery? That's the first thing we'll talk about. Then I'll show you some best practices and pitfalls in Alfresco environments when you want to introduce continuous delivery for Alfresco projects. And I'll end with a live demo how we actually use continuous delivery in our development environment. So I'll show you some coding and how this works in real life. Right, let's move to continuous delivery, to the definition. What are the cornerstones of continuous delivery? The basic point in continuous delivery is that every check-in, or at least a bunch of check-ins combined, create a potential release candidate. So you always have to keep in mind that whenever you're doing something, it gets checked in, that the continuous delivery platform will try to deliver it to a production-like environment and will run real-life tests on that environment. So you can be sure that whatever you checked in is working in an environment as it would work in a customer's environment. The paradigm of continuous delivery is infrastructure is code. So until now, until very recently, most of the deployments that happen have a separate life cycle for coding and for deployment. So the coding is done by the developers. Deployment is done by system administrators. There are worlds in between, yeah? And I think everybody knows the situation where something works on your laptop, but it doesn't work at the customer side. What continuous delivery tries to do is to treat infrastructure as you would treat code, which means that everything is fully automated, everything is scripted, and your landscape configurations and the way you deploy things, this is all treated as code. So there's no manual intervention anymore. You all automate all of this. tools are needed to do this. We'll come to that later. The third cornerstone, this is something that actually comes from the continuous integration people, is that every step of this automated process delivers immediate feedback on what you've done. So if the build fails, if the deployment fails, if the tests fail, you will get immediate feedback, notification in your, maybe in your ticket system, maybe by email, maybe by whatever means, and it will show you what check-ins caused the build to break or what check-ins caused the deployment to break. So it enables developers and the whole team to act on it immediately and to correct all these failures as they happen. This is a big difference from the usual QA cycle where things get tested a long time after they have been developed and where you might not really know what you have done at that point anymore. There's usually a time span of weeks, sometimes months in between. With continuous delivery, it's immediate. Right, so what does this actually mean if we put it in practice? Yeah? So if these three things are delivered by an infrastructure, this means that you always, at any given moment in time, you have a release, a verified build that could be released to production. Now that's a very nice thing to have. You can always be sure that there is something that you can bring to your customer that you can deliver. Yeah? So that is what is the real value of a continuous delivery platform. Right, so if we put this in context, so continuous integration. I think most of you are using some kind of build server. Is there, who's using a build server like Jenkins or Hudson or something like that? Okay, so you're doing continuous integration or you're doing, well, at least a nightly build. Yeah? So let's say that is the type of level of automation where most people are at the moment. So each check-in creates a build, or at least you do a build every night. Now, this is, of course, very nice. You can do automated code level analysis, you know, like tools like Sonar or other code coverage tools. You can do unit testing, all automatically done when you're doing the build with the build server. And it guarantees the quality of the code. It guarantees that it's consistent across the team. So this brings a level of you know, trust in the build, a level of trust in the code that is good. You know that it's working. Yeah? Continuous delivery takes that to another level. So as I said, each check-in creates a potential release candidate. So something that you know that can be deployed. So it is a fully automated deployment to a production-like environment. And most of the time, you will also, you know, this is what you should aim for, is like a push-button deployment to the production environment. So this is typically not done automatically. We'll come to that in a minute. It guarantees that the code is always in a state that can be released to production. This is a critical factor. And it always enables the QA people to have the latest implementations, the latest features available for testing. So you can do a very, let's say, closely, tightly coupled release of implementations, check-ins, and testing kind of process. There's another step further, which is called continuous deployment. We're not at that level. It's also sometimes called continuous release. This means that each check-in actually produces a production release automatically. This is used by some big players. Google is doing that. Salesforce is doing that. So whenever the people who write the code check it in, a couple of hours later, they have a production release online. Now, this requires 100% test coverage. I mean, you want to be sure that this is working. So this is kind of a difficult thing to do. And it requires trust in the build. You have to be able to script all your tests 100%. You need some very sophisticated deployment tools for that. So what is done most of the time is that they build up two parallel production environments that are actually mirrors of each other. It's called a blue-green deployment. So you deploy to one cluster at one point in time, then switch all the traffic to that cluster, the next build goes to the other cluster, and they switch around the whole time. So this is also a very cost-intensive thing to do, of course. It guarantees, in this case, that you can actually have the latest improvements in the code available to the end users at all times. So this is the ideal world. I don't think it's something that is reachable for most of us. As I said, it's very cost and resource intensive. And continuous delivery is almost at the same level, so that is where we aimed for, and that's what we're doing at the moment. Right. How do you do this? Yeah, you need to set up some tools. You need to set up an environment that makes this happen. So it all starts with your ticket system, where you actually plan the project, where you plan the features that have to be implemented, where you plan the sprints that you're going to do, where you assign the tasks to your developers. So they start working on a task in their development environment, some type of IDE, yeah? And then when it's ready, they close the task in the ticket system and they check in the source code. Now this check-in will automatically trigger a build in the build server. And the build server will, of course, build all the code together, do some tests, unit tests, other testing, test the coverage, some code analysis, statistics, stuff like check style also as well. And when that all is running well, then you actually create your build artifacts, which Alfresco use case will be maybe a WAR file or an AMP or something like that. And it's stored in the artifact repo. From there on, when that is done, the deployment framework will start doing its thing. So it will run the actual install scripts that create the Alfresco runtime environment, create a database, create a Tomcat server that's behind it, all the infrastructure components that are needed on a virtual machine. This might be in the cloud, this might be on your local environment. And from there on, when that's running, we'll hit some load tests to do basic testing on the virtual instance that is running there, on the deployed instance. And you can also do some load tests if you want. And of course, there's still some manual QA involved. So once the ticket has been closed, it's normally assigned to a QA tester team for testing. And they have the new feature available in a matter of hours after the build has been triggered. Even for very large environments, like at the SAP environment, a clean build takes about an hour 20 minutes. In most cases, it's considerably faster. So the average of building and deploying that we have at Westernacher is around 6 minutes after check-in. So this is quite fast. So you have almost immediate feedback to your QA team. They can almost immediately start testing. Now, how did we fill all these boxes in? I mean, which products are we using at Westernacher? So we are using Jira from Atlassian as a ticket system, Eclipse. I think most people will use that here. We're using Subversion and are experimenting with Git at the moment. We use Bamboo as the build server, so it's also a product from Atlassian. Show that later. For unit, for the repo, the artifact repo, we're using Artifactory, which is a Maven compliant repository. We're using VMware vSphere it's a kind of a private cloud that we're using. We're using Amazon as well, but for most of the, let's say, stuff that is run on a continuous basis, so 24 hours, vSphere is considerably cheaper. We're using Chef from Opscode as the deployment framework. This is still pretty new, but it works very well. Of course, we're doing unit testing. We're using Sonar to do code analysis. We're using Selenium to do smoke tests and UI tests. And we're also using JMeter for load tests. So a couple of these components I will show live in action afterwards. Right, so now we've seen what continuous delivery is. see how we build up the environment. What are actually the advantages of having this? Because it's a considerable cost to set up. So what is actually the value of this? Well, having a build, yeah, that is verified in a production-like environment, automatically, it guarantees that you have good quality. Yeah? So customers can be assured that whatever you deliver at any time is running and is working as they expected. Of course, that's only one aspect. You know, at Westernacher, what we did is to make it as transparent as possible. Maybe you remember the keynote from yesterday where John Newton said, well, what makes Alfresco different? And one of the key points was that he said it's an open platform. Our customers, they have access to the code. They can see what we're doing. We're actually totally transparent. So this is also in continuous delivery a very nice thing to have. We open our ticket system. The customers can see when we are closing features, when we have them checked in. They can see our bugs. They can immediately go to a test environment where they can actually check what we've done, if that is really what they have expected. So it's totally transparent. They know at any point in time what we're doing, and they can verify what we're doing. So that's a very nice thing to have, and customers really love that. This creates trust. We have nothing to hide in the end. It's all there. So they know that, you know, whatever is going wrong, they'll be part of it. If it's going well, they can see it immediately, so that there's immediate feedback and trust. It also reduces costs. This whole deployment stuff, which is usually done by system administrators, is very time intensive. And by automating it, you have a one-time cost to make it automatic, but afterwards it's all running without manual intervention. This is a real cost reduction in the long term. For developers, what's in it? Well, it takes the pain and the frustration out of deployments. I mean, how many times have you been at a customer where you say, okay, now I have this working code, it's on my local machine, and now I have to transfer it into an environment where they can test it, but actually it's not working. Maybe you have overlooked a parameter, maybe something is not configurable in the landscape that should be configurable, things like that. So it's always a frustrating experience to be there and, you know, to get into a situation where things are not working in the customer's environment. This is completely automated, it has been verified, has been tested, so it's not happening anymore. You save time. I mean, it works from the first time, so you just come there, change the configuration, and it's running. And of course, that enables you to focus more on what you like and what you do best. You like coding, so that's what you're at. You're not going to go into all these nasty deployment details, these system administrator tasks that you normally have to do when you deploy something. Right. Well, let's talk a bit about the best practices here. So how do you do this in an Alfresco environment? So what should you kind of keep in mind when you're setting up your own continuous delivery infrastructure? First thing is that you need to use consistent templates for your projects. Everybody knows when you start a project, you kind of build a folder structure where things goes in, and then at the end you have your build scripts to put it together and then kind of create a jar or something like that. So if you want to take the chaos out of deployment, you have to make sure that you do a lot of thinking about the project structure that is actually going to produce your artifacts and where you have to store your code. There's always 3 levels. So you have a repo project, you have a share project where the share customizations go in, and you have a root project where the build settings go in, where your build files lie. We spent a couple of months actually to figure out what the best solution would be for these things. So I'll show you later how this is built up in practice. Every project is built in the same way. So you create a build file that has a lot of flexibility that you can put in with parameters that you can say, customized in a couple of ways. And these templates, everything you have there, you should version them in Alfresco, in Subversion or another CM system, so you can actually, follow what has been changed over time. So it will change, of course. Build in Maven or Gradle. Now, I don't want to make a religious thing out of this. Who's building with Ant here? Okay. Ant is nice. I like Ant very much. If you're building with Ant, you should at least use dependency resolution with Ivy. So, I mean, Alfresco has a Maven repository now. It can be accessed with Maven, obviously, also with Gradle, also with Ant. Now, at Westernacher, we were never very happy with Maven. It's nice, but it's very rigid. With Gradle, we had a lot more flexibility. So we actually designed a couple of plugins for Maven, for Gradle that built all the amps and that do some other magic in the background. This was a very nice experience. Maven has a domain-specific language in Groovy that is specifically oriented towards building and deploying things. Now, if you have never used Gradle, have a look at it. It's at version 1.2 now. The tooling is getting better in Eclipse. So there's a plugin from got the name. Well, from a company that makes a lot of software. It's very usable and it's mature. Yeah? So if you're still thinking about how to do the builds, give Gradle a chance. I would highly recommend it. Use AMPs to package your deliverables. Alfresco module packages, it's kind of a standard for Alfresco that defines how you can package extensions and your own source code, so it can easily be installed in Alfresco. There's still a lot of people out there who build custom Alfresco war files and things like that. It's not very scalable. It's not very usable. It's also very big, and AMP files are like module packages that you can just install inside of the war, and it's much easier to use. So you have a module package for the repo, module package for share. And you can also, of course, apply other amps that come from other projects. So what you should not do in a continuous delivery environment is put your landscape-dependent configuration inside of the amp. I know this has been recommended otherwise in a couple of forum and blog posts, so that you put everything inside of the amp. But you're going to deploy in various landscapes. You're deploying on your own laptop, which might have kind of a database setting that is different from what you're doing in a test system or what you're doing in a production environment. So these are the two candidates that you have to factor out. These will be the two configuration files that you're looking for that are not inside of your AMP file. Also very necessary when it comes to testing is that you have built information that is visible inside of your Alfresco environment. So what we've done is that we always include an AMP that shows this built information. And here you see exactly what customizations you have applied to your standard Alfresco. It gives you the build number, the build date, and the module that has been deployed. So when the people who are reporting bugs in the tests, they can always just copy and paste this information, put it in a ticket, and then you know exactly what version of the code you have to work against to reproduce the bug and to fix it. This is, of course, very much needed because you're continuously deploying, so you're updating this on a continuous basis, and you need to know where you have to look at. Right. A very important thing here is that you build your binaries once. So as I said, you're going to build it in AMP files. and you have externalized the configuration. So one binary fits all landscapes. Once it has been tested, there are no regressions possible. If you build new binaries for every possible landscape that you're deploying to, which has also been recommended in some areas, then you're losing that confidence that it works, because the configuration can break the whole build. So in this case, this is externalized, and it's stored actually in the source code management system, so you can version your config files, and from there on, they will be fed into the deployment framework, as I'll show you later. So again, we're treating infrastructure and configuration as code. It's versioned and managed at the same place in the same way as you would do it for normal code. Use deployment framework. At the beginning, we were trying to do all of this stuff with Ant. In 2009, we had huge Ant scripts that did all of these deployment tasks to the cloud, to Amazon. We had scripted and written, I don't know how many lines of code. It doesn't work and scale well. It's way too much effort. The deployment framework like Chef from Opscode or Puppet from Ubuntu, these are things that really take the pain out of these deployment tasks. So these are things that have huge repositories online in the community where you have lots of scripts, like things that set up a Tomcat, that set up a MySQL, that set up the whole Apache environment. It's all there for you. You can just take it as a basis, adapt it a little bit to your own environment, and it also is made to handle these externalizations of the configuration. So that means that you actually use templates in your scripting, and it will pull out the configuration for the actual landscape from the Subversion or Git repository, and it will fill out these parameters automatically in your build scripts. So that's all there for you. Don't use Ant to do this stuff because it's way too much effort. We use Chef. I would not say that there's a big difference between Puppet and Chef when it comes to features or when it comes to maturity. They both do the same thing. If you're using Ubuntu, it might make more sense to use Puppet because it's actually part of the operation environment. We like Chef. We used it from the beginning. We have experience with it. And Chef, it's from opscode.org. It's an open source product with commercial support. They also have a commercial version. And there's a large community, and they use lots of JSON configuration, Ruby scripting. So if that is the type of thing that you're working with anyway, then I would recommend Chef. Another thing that's very important in continuous delivery for Alfresco is to design modular solutions. Also, John Newton was talking about solutions yesterday, that this is getting more the focus of Alfresco, where you actually package your solutions in a clean way so you can extend Alfresco without touching the original code. Yeah, that is a very powerful paradigm that actually is coming a bit late in Alfresco. I would have loved to have this 3 years ago. Since 4.0, it's more or less possible to do it. You have seen the demo of Mike Farman, where he actually deploys new modules into Alfresco without restarting the server and without touching the actual core code. So that's what you have to think of when you're doing continuous delivery, because continuous delivery will allow you to define all these modules that you want in your solution, and just by configuration, pull them in and deploy them automatically to your environment. So try to package all your extensions in AMPs. Yeah? We usually have a project where we say, okay, this is what we are doing for a specific customer implementation, where we have the requirements of the customer, but they might also want some of the stuff we have already available. For example, an Outlook plugin or some share extension for media and stuff like that. And that is something that we put together in a flexible deployment configuration where we compose the modules that we have into a configuration file. It's linked to the artifact repository, so we can pull in the AMPs that we have for these modules. And it supports versioning and dependency resolution, all automatically done by Chef. So this is a very powerful way of actually almost, clicking and pointing your solution together based on the components you already have. Right. This might sound like a strange piece of advice, deploy 2 instances on the same virtual machine. What we usually see is that the QA testing, which happens during the day, needs a stable environment. So if you're doing new builds every, say, 30 minutes or something, it's going to restart the server automatically. It's going to deploy a new version. You cannot expect manual QA to happen in a situation like that. So we have a continuous build instance, which lives on port 8080. And this instance is actually used to verify the delivery, so that we verify that we can actually deploy the new build. And it's a dynamic environment for automated testing. Now, for the manual QA testing, we have a dependent build that is relying on the continuous build, which will only run once at night. And it only takes the continuous build artifacts when they have been green, and it produces a stable environment for the QA testers, which lives on another port, 8081, for example. So you have one test system that is used for 2 purposes. Saves money, saves time, and is highly flexible. So there's also various ways how you can do the actual delivery, how you can do the deployments. So that there's, you should support 2 types of things. First is the deep deployment, where you're going to set up a complete system from scratch. So you have a bare bones virtual machine template. You will install the complete Tomcat setup, the complete Apache, the complete MySQL, everything. That's a clean database, clean repos. So you have no data in it at all. This is what you want in some cases. This is what you need for an initial setup. In most cases, you want to do a shallow deployment where you actually only update the web application. It's much faster. So this is usually a couple of minutes, maybe 10 minutes. This will take a bit more time to actually run. Create data loaders. One thing that's often forgotten is that if you want automated testing, you're going to need data in the repository that you do your testing against. Alfresco is a content management system, so you're going to need content inside of the system to actually verify if your services are doing stuff with the content as designed. So automated data loading each time when you produce the build, or actually when you do a deep deployment, is needed. You can use all of the Alfresco mechanisms that are available to do this. So there's, you can use ACPs, you can use bootstraps mechanisms to create folder templates, categories, users, stuff like that. Also to add actual data, actual documents in it. Usually you're doing some type of REST API. If you're dealing with share extensions, you're writing web scripts. So this is automatically a REST API that can be accessed by HTTP. So use your own scripts to actually upload the data. You can use these scripts also to double as load test scripts. And it's an excellent documentation for your own API code. So this is something that takes some time getting used to, but it's very valuable. So you don't have to manually upload any stuff to start testing anymore. It saves a lot of time. Right, the last piece of advice here for the best practices is that you should use the cloud. There's been lots of hype about using cloud or not using cloud. But the fact is that when you're doing continuous delivery, you're going to need quite a bit of virtual machine infrastructure. So you need a database, you need your Alfresco server, you might need a directory server, things like that. You can install it on the same VM, you can share it across VMs and stuff like that. But you're going to need an infrastructure that is highly flexible, where you want to maybe add CPU resources as needed, where you want to change the amount of memory that's needed. So we have used the Amazon cloud extensively, but we're also using our own private cloud. So what you normally do is create a template where you have your operating system ready, where you have your basic environment ready, install a Java runtime environment, for example. And in our case, where we have a chef client ready that we can trigger so it starts the automated deployment. We use the same template for all our projects. Saves time. We have used the Amazon cloud. It's ideal for load testing. Well, they have obviously almost unlimited resources. So if you need load testing for a big environment where you say, I want 24 CPUs, you just create an instance of your template for a big Amazon instance, and it's there. So it's ideal for short research projects where you might want to test a new technology or something like that. It's actually not so cheap as we might think. We have seen quite high prices if you use Amazon for a continuous environment. I mean, that has to run 24 hours a day. It's much more expensive than using the traditional hosting environments that are available from, for example, One-on-One or from Strato or another hosting service offering. So at Westernacher, we use a cluster of machines at Thomas Krenn here in Deutschland. So it's 3 machines that are running vSphere. And if you look at it from a pricing level, over time, over a year, it's only like 1/3 of the cost that you would have at Amazon. So this is something you should consider. It's quite a cheap investment, a high investment at the beginning. But it pays after about 6-7 months of usage. So that's very cost effective for daily use. Right, these are the best practices. I have many more, but we're limited in time, so I'll move to some of the pitfalls that we actually ran into ourselves. Unrealistic time planning is something that is probably well known to all software developers. But setting up a continuous delivery environment is not something you do every day. So you might, not be able to estimate how much time it will take. So we planned in 6 months to actually set this up. It took us almost 9, so it's not too bad. But still, you have to consider that it's a very resource-intensive thing. And you need lots of refactoring, because the first time that you do it, you're not going to do it right. So it's something that is actually really a bit like a software project itself. You design your first release candidate of the whole scripting environment, of the templates, of the project folders, all the build files. And then once you've done it, you automatically come to a point where you say, OK, this is working, but I want something else. I want something better. So you have to do it in an agile kind of way, where you apply the same rules to your build environment as you would do for a normal software project. This is something that it aligns with the infrastructure is code ID. So actually, you should plan the setup of the continuous delivery environment as a software project, deliver it in short cycles where you define the features that you want to have, and deliver often. After 9 months, we came to a version 1.0 of our infrastructure, and we're planning now the version 1.5, which will take another 3 months to deliver. Let's say that is the realistic time. You have to keep in mind it will take you almost a year to set this up in a working environment if you want to have something that scales. If you have only one project, It's much easier if you're using it in-house, if you're not developing other projects for as a partner of Alfresco for other customers, but only using it internally. I'd say 4 or 5 months will be enough to implement it. Something that developers often forget is that you have to talk to your system administrators, to your IT guys, who will almost for sure have a much better insight in how the operations run on the production level as you do yourself. Now, I'm not saying that developers are not capable of doing deployments and not capable of writing deployment scripts, but they tend to forget quite a few things. And it's also, you know, nice to have the input of the system administrators because they are going to question this solution. They don't like continuous delivery normally because they feel threatened by it. It's taking part of their job. It's automating what they do manually normally. So you have to show the advantages of it. And it's not like you're kicking out the system administrators. It's also a good thing to have the system administrators actually create the script cookbooks and recipes that you're using so that they are involved and that they see that they can they can do their job more efficiently when they are using continuous delivery. You still need people who know about operations, who know about system administration, but they work with an automated system now. That's the point. Of course, there will be less work for system administrators in the end. We don't have to try to hide that. It is a fact that you're automating things, and automating means less manual labor. There's also IT policies and compliance things that you might want to check before you start. You know, doing it afterwards is usually a big effort. Just an example here, we had a customer who only runs HTTPS at port 1000, I don't know what. If you don't have a configuration for that, if your scripts cannot deliver that, then you have a problem. Yeah? So always check what you need to support. The last thing, and this is, I think, one of the most difficult things, is that the developers have to understand that a green build, a build that is working, is what you should aim for. So they get feedback every, say, 30 minutes, every hour, that the build system has done something. Usually it's green, which means everything is under control. But when a red build comes in, yeah, you get an email, this is not going well, then the team has to react immediately. You have to fix the build. That's the first thing you do. You know, you had a version maybe 100, and now you're checking revision 101. It's a small amount of code, and there's an error in there somewhere, which means it's easy to find. And if you do it immediately, you're going to spend maybe a couple of minutes to fix the bug. If the build is red and you keep on checking in, and the build is red for a couple of days, you lose half of the advantages of a continuous delivery system, because after a while, you don't know what caused the error anymore. So evangelizing the value of a green build and to communicate the advantages and make sure that everybody feels responsible for a green build is of paramount importance. And it takes some time to settle in with the development team before they actually understand that. Also, yeah, developers want to code. They don't want to mess around with systems, with documentation, with I don't know, build pipelines. So it should be very easy to them to set this up. So you create working examples. You set up end-to-end samples like a kind of an SDK where if you want to start a new project, you do these and these and these clicks, and it's running. Yeah? So you have to make sure that that is available before you start to use this in a larger team. Otherwise, you will get lots of complaints. Right. These are the theoretic things behind it. I will show you a small demo now. So what I've done is I created a small Eclipse project here. Well, that's a bit unfortunate. It's not very well aligned here. Let me see if we can. Right, then we'll do it in this way. So this is a tree-level project where we actually have the root project here. It's the DevCon project. And here we see that we have the build file. It's build.gradle. We have the build properties, Gradle.properties. We have some general settings for Gradle. And here we have the actual externalized configuration where we have development, production properties. And here this one is for my local machine, the Roelad properties. So that is the general, let's say, setup that's available to every project. Then over here, we have the repository project, which contains the Alfresco repository extensions. In this case, for the simplicity's sake, I don't have any customizations here. And here, we have the DevCon share project, which contains the usual hello world dashlet. And when we deploy this, so when we check this in, the build server will start, and it will deploy a system. And I've got the running example here. So let me make this a bit smaller. So this is the system as it is now. So we have the hello world dashlet here. And I'm just going to change that dashlet, check it in, and then you see how the build server is triggered and what happens in the background. So I'll go back to Eclipse and change the free market template here. So we'll get in maybe another message. Hello, DevCon Berlin 2012. If we look at the document library here, we'll see that there's an email inside. Now, the way Alfresco previews emails is not very nice. This is an HTML email, and by using this dynamic module composition, I will apply a new module that actually brings in some extensions that will cause the email preview to look a bit prettier. So how do I do that? It's very easy. Here in the main project, there's a chef.amp configuration, which actually tells the build server which modules should be deployed. So of course, I have the Alfresco vars, but I also have the build info module. It's here. And I have the DevCon project that I just shown here. Now, to extend this, I will add in some configuration. Just I stored it here. So this will actually install our Outlook plugin that we have available in another project, and I'll simply add it in here after the build. So what's going to happen now? We're going to include this Outlook plugin and this mail transformer. I'm going to check in the changes for the dashlet, and then we'll see how this is going to start a new build. So let me check this in. I I hope I'm online here. Yep, okay. No, that's not a dashlet, that's the module update. Did I save it? Yeah. Well, sorry. So that's checked in. Let's have a look at our build server now. Do a refresh here. So this is the build pipeline for the continuous build. It will start the build in a couple of seconds when it has detected the check-ins. So this is not running yet. As you can see, I have two pipelines here. It's the continuous build and the nightly build. This, for some reason, went wrong yesterday. I did not have time to check it, so that's what you're going to see when you have a red build. And here, it failed at the chef run, so at the deployment stage, you can simply look at the logs here to see what went wrong. A normal build looks green, of course, so you see it's building now. It has detected the changes, and it will tell me, based on the statistics, how long it will take to build, so it's about 4 minutes. In the meantime, we can have a look at a green build. So that was built yesterday. Here, you see what changes have been done. So the check-ins that have been done, what has been created, what has been updated. So it's all logged, all the information is available, so you always know what has been done, what's going on. These log files are of really big importance to our developers, so if something goes wrong, they simply check what has been logged here. They look at the changes that have been done here. There's also a connection to Jira, so you can see which tasks have been closed and stuff like that. And they know exactly where to look. So this is really helpful. If you look at the build here, again, so it's blue, it's building. So here, this build stage is already done. Actually, what is happening here is that it checks out the source code from the Subversion repository. It will build the code. It will build the artifacts, the AMPs. It will run unit testing on it. And if all of that is successful, it will report green here. This stage here is doing the actual continuous deployment. So it's the chef run, as it's called here. This will trigger the chef client on our virtual machine. The chef client is going to look at the configuration of the build pipeline and will check out the configuration files, and then it will run the scripts needed to deploy Alfresco. So in about 2 minutes from now, this should be done. And then I will refresh the Alfresco share instance, and we'll see that it has been deployed automatically. I can take some questions now while this is building. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes?
Mm-hmm. To have only small customizations for the customer. Sorry. Yeah. What your experience is this suitable for smaller projects?
Yeah, we use it for any size of project. Actually, once you have it set up, it doesn't matter what size of project it is. Like this project only has 5 customization files that I'm showing now. And it's the same amount of effort, no matter what the size of your project is, to set it up. And if you have templates and samples available, it's done very quickly. So in a matter of 4 or 5 hours, you have the configuration ready for your new project. So that is also applicable for small projects, indeed.
And who is responsible for keeping up the running the system?
Well, in our case, we have a team of 3 system administrators who are responsible for the built environment from an infrastructure point of view. So they keep up the system, and the developers, they only have to worry about keeping the build green. So developers don't see the actual, let's say, system administration that is needed to apply the build server and things like that. That's not their cup of tea. They just use it, and it's the IT administration that does it for them.
Thank you.
Welcome. Right, other questions? So we only have a couple of seconds remaining here, if the statistics are right. So let's hope that there are no other builds running at the same time, because then the build system gets a bit slower, as you can see. That's not good. Yes.
What other service? Why did you choose? Why did you choose Bamboo? Do you have other alternative? Maybe open source ones?
There are plenty of alternatives. From open source, there's Jenkins, which is quite popular. There's Hudson, which used to be quite popular, but is now owned by Oracle, so it's not so popular anymore. Well, but you know, there's plenty of alternatives. We used Bamboo because we've been using Jira as our ticket system for a very long time, and it integrates very well. So it's easier. It's not cheap. If I would have to do it again, I would probably not opt for Bamboo anymore. I like Jenkins. It's quite good, but as I said, there are many options. Right, so this went through, and we have a running system, hopefully. So if I go back here, my dashboard, then, yeah, it has applied the 2012 string here, so that's working. We should see some other stuff in the document library. So hope that's working. Right, with the data loader, I put in an EML file here, which should provide a bit of a richer preview now with clickable links inside it. Yeah, indeed. So this looks a bit more like a rich text rendering of the email. And if I click here, then we go to our beautiful new website. Okay, so, well, I hope I explained a little bit of what continuous delivery is. If you have any questions, if you want more details, I'm still around this afternoon, but feel free to contact me. My data are in the slides. You can find them on myalfresco.com. They're available from the DevCon website. So yeah, thank you very much for your attention.